Township of Elmwood Planning Commission regular meeting convened Tuesday, January 17, 2023 at 7 p.m. Please stand and join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Chris Mikowski.
Here.
Rick Bechtold.
Here.
Jeff April.
Here.
Jonah Kuzma.
Here.
Nate McDonald.
Here.
And Doug Roberts and Kendra Luda are excused.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum, so we can proceed with the rest of the agenda. Item D, limited public comment only on the agenda items. We limit public comment at this section to 3 minutes. If you wish to make a comment, please come and to the podium and make your comment. We appreciate you introducing yourself. That just helps us to get to know you a little bit better, but it's not required. So I will open public comment at 7:01 p.m. Seeing no one coming forward, we will close public comment at 7:02 p.m.
Will you allow the comment at the end, or is that the only time you can comment?
No, there is a comment period at the end. This public comment was just strictly for the agenda, and then the last one is essentially sort of a wide open.
New Year's.
Okay. Item E, agenda modifications and approval. We will need a motion to either approve or modify the agenda as it was presented.
Move to make that motion.
We have a motion to approve the agenda as it was presented.
Before you make that motion, I think it might be a clerical mistake, but under new business, J sub B, the ZO that references the 04-20. Sarah, is that supposed to be 04-19? Just looking at the heading for it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay.
It was advertised and posted as 0419.
Gotcha.
So yes, clerical error on the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved as presented. The minutes of the December 13th, 2022 meeting.
I will make a motion for the approval of the minutes of December 13, 2022.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of December 13th, 2022.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. The minutes of December 20th, 2000, excuse me, the minutes of the special meeting of December 20th, 2022.
If I may, I actually have some spelling corrections.
Okay.
I can go through them, but again, it's not changing any intent, just spelling modification. So on page 5 of 12, just correcting in the third kind of paragraph, both names, Sherry Buckbinder and Krista Algeyer. On page 7 of 12, correcting, I wrote Newey Hills, it should read Newfie Hills.
What hills?
Newfie.
Newfie. page 8 of 12, I missed a word, so it's in the last paragraph. Third line from the bottom, will do what is in their best, and it should read, in their best interest to have access. I believe that is it.
We haven't had a motion.
Yeah, with those corrections, I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion with the corrections in the minutes to approve them.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. Item G, consent calendar. Any questions for Sarah about any of the items on the consent calendar?
Make a motion, we file the consent calendar as printed.
Okay, we have a motion to file the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The consent calendar is filed as presented. Item H, declaration of conflict of interest. Commissioners, please review the remaining items on the agenda. If you,
We want to do a couple
wasn't that on the, contained on the
more.
consent?
Yeah, okay, sorry.
No, we were just discussing if we had to have separate motions for the.
Oh, no,
If
it's
you
just
wanna
all in
look
one.
at it. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest. Commissioners, please review the remaining items on the agenda, and if you consider yourself having a conflict with one or more, please identify that at this time.
Mr. Chair, I have in the past worked for Mr. Dindia. I helped John get his first building up out there. Have no connection with this project, but I still like to state it just so people are aware, or somebody doesn't call foul.
Thank you, but currently you don't have any contractual work pending or, okay, thank you. So we'll determine that there's no conflict tonight. Item I, old business. We have nothing in old business. Excuse me. Item J, sub A, introduction, site plan review, special use permit 2022-07, request by John Dindia regarding property at 8230 East Lakeview Hills Road, parcel number 006-012-00 for an agricultural commercial enterprise, parenthesis, farm market. So, do we have anyone that's going to be presenting tonight?
I believe we do, but just before they get into that, I just want to go over some new materials. I just want to go over some new materials that we have that weren't in the
Okay.
e-packet. There was a letter of support submitted by the Britons, so you have that. You also have, you received today a review by the fire chief, and then this was submitted by the applicants, but I did not include them in your packet, so apologies. This is additional supplemental information. It was incorporated into my staff report, but I just didn't have copies for you, so I'll have copies. I printed copies for you.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have, so if you guys wanna.
Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm John Dindia. This is my partner, Bailey Sam.
Hey.
we've owned Lakeview Hill Farm here in Elmwood Township since 2017. Since 2019, we've had an on-site ag farm market. It's just a self-serve roadside stand. It is open year-round, and it's like air-conditioned and everything else. And we have recently acquired this property 2 parcels down, and we're hoping to convert the schoolhouse into a ag farm market, closing our one on our primary farm. I'm open to answer any questions for you. Just as a note as well, it must have gotten, we were out of town for the ZBA meeting, and so we had some of our staff members come and do it, and we must have lost the letter of support. We have that same letter of support signed by the Britons. It's also signed by 2 other neighboring property owners, the Beatons across the street, and then also, what's the other neighbor's name?
Hesterman, Sarah Hesterman, I think.
Yeah,
is
Sarah
her last
Hesterman.
name. But they're right behind the Britton.
Yeah, right next door to the Britons as well. So they've both signed that letter as well, and we can certainly get that forwarded over to you guys if you want it. Besides that, we're pretty much proposing a pretty straightforward application. The building, if you don't know, was completely redone by the previous owners, and it's pretty much ready to go as far as what we've done a review with the Construction Code Authority along with the Health Department, or excuse me, MDARD, Food and Dairy Division, and all we need to do is make the building ADA accessible, along with installing a new well on the property as well, because currently the well is too close to the septic field for food safety reasons for what they're concerned about, because we do have to have a bathroom like in the building itself, and so a bathroom is already present. There's already a really nice electric, and the lighting and everything else is really nice in the building. So besides that, are there any questions? I'd like to make note as well, so we own a small certified organic produce operation. I've been doing this for at least 12 years now, and Bailey's joined me since slightly before that. And we employ 6 individuals, 2 of which live in Elmwood Township. The other 2 live in neighboring, Traverse City or Empire or
Leelanau County.
yeah, Leelanau County for the most part. We've been committed to supporting our local community. Every single dollar that is sold off of our farm goes within the 3-county area of Leelanau, Grand Traverse, and Benzie. I guess there's also a bit in Antrim as well. But we're really trying to do this project and increase the size of this farm market so that we can support other local farmers as well. We've found a huge demand through our current store to be able to provide other products from other growers. We only produce produce, so other goods such as fruits, and dairy, meat, and other handcrafted agricultural products, I think would be really nice. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to support our neighbors, our community, and especially the farmers that live within it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and currently we have like a lot of support from our neighbors and just like the community in Leelanau County. And we've kind of outgrown our small stand, so this is kind of why we're trying to expand to that. Just so we can carry more vegetables and more local goods but we get a lot of comments from the community that it's nice to not have to drive to Traverse City, so this will make it easier. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for everybody.
Yeah. The parcel itself it is a 5-acre parcel. It's about 4 acres once you take out the road right away, since it is on a corner. But it does have a 3-bed, 2-bath residence on it already, which is really nice because as I'm sure all of you know, housing is really difficult, and it's really difficult to get employees because of housing. So we see that as a great asset of having this property so close to the farm. It also has about 2.5-ish acres of the flattest land that we will own to date. And we do plan on adding and growing into having a cut flower operation. So it would be growing cut flowers that would be sold locally through the farm market, as well as other grocery stores and florists and so on.
And you mentioned that other farm-crafted products, so you would be just trying to gather them from Leelanau County primarily?
Yes.
Traverse City and Leelanau County.
Trevor, so you might take in some from some of the farms in Benzie County as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
potential?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a member of like the My Farm Co-op. It's a growers only produce, more or less produce. I guess there's also other agricultural products, growers cooperative, and so we'd be purchasing a lot of products through that co-op that we're a member of as well, to help sell them, because we're friends with all those farmers and trying to support all of them. But all those farmers are within they're all within Grand Traverse, Leelanau, Benzie, Antrim, and then I always forget the name of the county that Cadillac is in.
Wexford.
Wexford,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I would just note that, so I have the standards and the requirements in the staff report. So on page 2 of 8 of the staff report, it does indicate that sales of certain goods are prohibited unless otherwise authorized by the ordinance. So specifically that, could include, I'm not sure if it would, new and used household goods as well as alcohol production and sales. So just, everybody would be aware of that, but I just want to draw attention to that now as well.
So no wines? Okay.
No.
No beers?
We're not requesting that, no.
Good, okay. And no garage sales?
No garage sales. Besides the occasional piece of farm equipment on the corner.
Just to make it clear, when you made the statement that there's 2 bedrooms and a bath, there, for everybody's information, I know the property pretty well. There's 2 separate structures on the property. One is the farm market, which would be separate from the house.
Yes.
The house is separate on the property. When you stated it, it kind of sounded like it was enclosed.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
No.
We've run into that miscommunication before as well. We're not asking or have any intentions to build onto the schoolhouse structure. We want to keep it as much original and intact as it is, just to make that clear as well.
What about signage, John?
We've requested to apply for that at a later date, yeah. But we have no intentions on asking for anything outside of what is described in the township ordinance.
Do any commissioners have any other questions for the applicants? That is an interesting proposal for an antique school building.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate, they did obtain a variance because the use itself does have a required 50-foot setback. So the structure was approved included in the ZBA decision, as was the ramp, because the ramp wasn't, it suggests that it's proposed, or recommended, not proposed, so, but the ramp was included. So.
Okay. And in your documents, you've mentioned the only hardscape would be what would be required by the road commission for probably a curb off of the county road.
Correct, it would just be the driveway and parking lot requirements. We have submitted the application and for the permit, for the driveway permit, but we haven't closed it because they have a certain number of days till it has to be completed, and we can't do that until, earlier in the spring, and obviously this gets approved if that happens. But we do know for the driveway permit that we do not need a curb. We would qualify for what they would consider a small business driveway permit, so that just it's all the same as a commercial, except for there is no curb. So the same, has to be paved from driveway edge to road right away, the certain throat width, the radius, and the tapers all have to be paved, and then 20 feet at 20-foot wide throat at road right away.
Okay, thank you.
And you do have that draft permit included in your application, your file.
What is your timeframe for completion?
All things ideal, May or June before summer tourist season. Yeah. There's really not too much work that really needs to be done to the building besides the ADA accessible ramp, putting in an ADA threshold, making the bathroom door wide enough for ADA accessibility. It's currently not a big enough door, but besides that, that's all that needs to be really done to the building.
Sounds cool. Are you gonna think about operating 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week? Are you gonna
6
do it
days.
like downtown, like 2
Pro-
days, or?
Probably 6 days a week to start. It's really hard to get staff on the weekends, so we'll
Right.
plan on Monday through Saturday, and then eventually, if we can, stay open 7 days a week.
Yeah, as much as possible.
Yeah, we've just found that, like locally, Sundays can be really busy at our farm store, but it's hard to have people working on Sundays.
Yeah. And it'll probably be shorter hours and decreased days in the winter
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, we might close for a month or so in the winter.
Yeah.
But 9 to 6 it would be the hours.
The only question I would have is you're saying that there's no lighting proposed other than for the sign, but what about the parking area and then the path going up to the building? Do you have any lighting there?
Yeah, if I believe correct, Sarah, we have requested to apply for like all lighting and signage permits later, or is that different?
Well, for the signage, I mean, yes.
Oh, okay.
So that's incorporated. I don't believe you're proposing any lights themselves specific to the parking lot. It would
Okay.
just be a light for the sign. I mean, did I review your information correctly?
I think so, and I don't
Yeah.
know what exactly we need a permit for, but the plan would be to have really small, low-to-the-ground lights for parking and driving, like for the walkway, yeah, not like a overhead
Okay.
light.
If I may, if lighting is proposed for the parking area, that should be included. So I would recommend that, if the planning commission does ultimately find the application to be complete, you prepare some sort of plan for the public hearing for that. And it would need to meet the requirements of the ordinance, section 6.5. I can give that language to you.
Okay.
So we can motion this to go to public hearing?
We can, and I think it would be important to note the lighting, the condition of, we need a lighting proposal, because since they have disclosed they got plans for probably like a bollard style lighting, like the post light that shines down, or something that's really, it's gonna basically illuminate the immediate walkway.
Yeah, it'd be even like waist height,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Okay. And they need to have a lighting plan, and that's not in the current application. So if it was brought to the public hearing, we could entertain it at the public hearing. Is that the form you want your motion?
Yeah, I'm making a motion based on the condition of providing a lighting layout or plan during the public hearing.
We have a motion to proceed to a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting with the condition that the applicant have available a lighting plan that is in conformance with our ordinance.
I'd second the motion.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. We will be going to a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Historic structure.
Yeah.
to item J, B, public hearing, ZO 20, is that supposed to be 19 or 17?
19.
Hyphen 04 hyphen 20, a zoning ordinance amendment to amend section 3.17, temporary seasonal uses and structures. The public hearing is now open at 7:26 p.m. And within the public hearing, there is an opportunity for public comment specific to the item in the public hearing. So if you wish to make a public comment, please come to the podium and do so. The public comment period is open at 7:26 also.
Good evening, Jack Kelly, 10100 East Avondale Lane. For the reasons articulated below, a copy of which I will provide to all of you at the conclusion of my remarks, I strongly recommend that the Planning Commission, by a majority vote, forward a motion of denial to the Township Board of Trustees regarding the proposed amendment, which, if adopted, would allow certain commercial uses to occur on a regular basis for the first time at Cherry Bend Community Park, a slippery slope that I would submit would be a grave mistake. And in further review of your application, I would propose or recommend that you expand what you have been presented this evening by Planner Sarah Claren in her December 30th, 2022 memo to include a possible discussion of section 5.4 and or the Charter Township of Elmwood Park Ordinance number 2011-5. Under section 5.4, it's interesting to note that the land use of temporary seasonal structures and uses discussed in section 317 is not currently included in that table. I'd submit that perhaps it would be a good idea for the Planning Commission to have a discussion about that. Secondly, please examine what land uses are currently allowed in the MC zoning district in that table and consider whether or not they are compatible with the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. I would submit that current uses are not compatible. As an aside, simply also consider the proposed language that would amend section 3.17. Where else are such temporary seasonal uses and structures currently allowed? Well, only neighborhood commercial, shoreline commercial, and general commercial. That by itself should tell you something. Regarding Charter Township Ordinance number 2011-5, section 2M of that ordinance states, no person shall interfere with another visitor's use of any Charter Township of Elmwood Park or recreational facility. If Cherry Bend Community Park is opened up to such commercial uses as parades, street fairs, Christmas tree sales, etc., as proposed under this amendment, isn't it logical to assume that the very nature of such uses and the associated traffic that would occur could likely interfere with another visitor's use of any Charter Township of Elmwood Park or recreational facility? Secondly, even more importantly, section 2I of that ordinance states, no commercial uses of any kind are permitted unless authorized by the Elmwood Township Board. Thus, if this proposed zoning ordinance text amendment were to be adopted as presented, not only would section 5.4 possibly be needed to be amended to include temporary seasonal uses and structures, I would submit that ordinance number 2011-5 would need to be amended as well. In summary, this proposed amendment is both ill-advised and unnecessary. It's ill-advised in the sense that it would allow for the very first time certain commercial uses and structures to be allowed and erected at Cherry Bend Community Park. Why? Doesn't make any sense to me. If someone wants to hold a commercial for-profit event, they can lease appropriate space elsewhere in the township where such activities are currently allowed. Unnecessary in the sense that section 2I of ordinance number 2011-5 states that no commercial activities of any kind are permitted. I know I'm not over 3 minutes.
Oh, you are. Stop.
Do you have, can you wrap it up?
I can wrap it up.
30 seconds?
Maintain the integrity of our township park ordinance. Allow the township board to decide these on a case-by-case basis, observe their impacts, and then go forward accordingly. And I would ask, and I'm going to present you a copy of this letter, that this letter be included in the official public record, and also that this letter is forwarded to the township board for its ultimate consideration. And I have copies for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, I have an extra one.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment? Seeing no one here. Did you wish to make a comment, sir?
Sorry.
Thank you. Then the public comment period is closed at 7:31. So currently, in the municipal center, there's, any type of commercial activity is not allowed.
Unless permitted by the township board.
Unless permitted by the board.
And I would note that this text actually came before the planning commission because the township board wanted to move it before the planning commission. They asked to see those changes.
So hypothetically, if something like this were approved and somebody wanted to have an antique fair in the common area on this campus, they would probably pay a fee to the township, or would the township get a percentage of their gross sales based on the daily use?
So that would be determined by the township board. It just would allow them to be able to go before the board for, well, in accordance with zoning, to go before the board for that request. Yeah, because again, the township board can allow commercial activity in the parks. I mean, would it be granted, though? I mean, that would be determined on a case-by-case basis by the township board, because according to this, the property owner does need to sign off on the application, so it would be kind of done in a few different ways. They would need to, again, assuming this is passed, I mean, so for discussion purposes, so if this is passed, you know, they would have to submit approval for the application. So that would probably first mean they would go before the township board to request permission to run the operation. So it would first go through the township board. If the township board doesn't want to move forward with it, it would, you know, fall flat. The township board would need to okay them filing for the permit. That's how I read it. They need permission from the property owner.
So really, it's not a whole lot different than what the ordinance currently says, Sarah? I mean, what's the difference here than what we have if the township board currently has to approve it?
It would just be incorporating that language into our zoning ordinance, which doesn't currently exist.
Okay.
So again, it would be adding them to the municipal center zoning district. Again, it's not a guarantee that they're going to get this temporary land use permit. It, again, needs to be reviewed and vetted before the township board. And then changes, again, I mean, like, would be eliminating circuses and carnivals, and limiting timeframes and requiring conformance with signage in the zoning ordinance. Yeah, the biggest change from our existing ordinance is just to allow it in the municipal center zoning district.
But the board could do that anyway by resolution.
I am always for the township board to conform 110% to our zoning ordinance. The parks ordinance does allow for the board to allow commercial activity, but the zoning ordinance does not. And that's part of the reason why this text is before you. We had somebody come in who wants to have a arts and crafts fair. So the township board, you know, asked me to come up and said, what does our zoning ordinance say? And it's like, well, we do allow for those kind of events, but not in the municipal center zoning district. And, you know, they wanted to see that text, so that's why it's before the planning commission at this time.
And just as a side note, I omitted reading the statement prior to the public hearing. I can stop and do that now, or we could just
You did open and close public open.
I opened public
yeah.
comment,
Mhm.
so, and I closed public comment, so I guess we're, kind of jumped ahead. And then, item, B1K, we don't really have a special events.
Definition, and, I mean, to your point, correctly, yeah, we did have a written email, from Sue Jones that also kind of indicates that. So suggests that, you know, we might wanna eliminate that phrase, which wouldn't change the intent, by any means, so I think we can do that now, if you want. So it does reference special events in two sections, so that's, B1C, location and proposed land area limits of activities and associated uses for all temporary special events and sales. I mean, I think, you know, can eliminate the latter half of that for all temporary special events and sales. And then not more than two, it does say special events have been held in the last 90 days. Could strike special.
I guess I'm kind of caught between, like, the, you know, the public community usage and then a private vendor coming in for a for-profit. And I know that you can drive by and see, I say, no one in the park, but then you drive by on some days and if there's a ball game or games going on, the place is full, or if there's a soccer event going on up in the field, you know, I'm just wondering how they would propose to balance something like that. Because I'm just thinking, once again, hypothetically, if this were to go through and I sold juvenile athletic equipment, I think I would get some, you know, as much of a permit as I could, and just have my van parked at all of the Little League baseball games, so if people are looking for new shoes, hats, mitts, balls, you know, I would hate to see a permanent vending be in place. I know it has to be approved by the board, but I guess you know, you look at the balance between public and.
If I could, that would not happen under the proposed text. So again, so if we look at B1.F, it talks about hours and dates of the activity. It says community picnics, parades, street fairs, flea markets, sidewalk sales, farmers markets, and arts and crafts fairs may be approved for a period not to exceed 7 days. Then you go down to B1K, where it says no more than 2 special events have been held in the last 90 days. So somebody could not just.
Wait a day and reapply?
No, that wouldn't be allowed under this. And I would also even argue that if somebody were to show up in a van and, hey, sorry, no, I'm not gonna go down that route, that would not fit under the definition of a community picnic, a parade, a street fair, a flea market, sidewalk sales, maybe sidewalk sales, but I believe the intent on that, I mean, again, I didn't create that language, that's already in our zoning ordinance. I mean, the sidewalk sales is, you know, stores opening up and like placing goods and merchandise on a sidewalk. I mean, it's not just a one individual person doing it, it's a group of people doing it. So if an individual were to set up camp, that would not meet that definition. Farmer's market wouldn't meet that, it's not an arts and crafts fair.
So our definition for sidewalk sales is a business.
So it's not actually defined by our zoning ordinance, so when that happens, you go to, we use Merriam-Webster's dictionary as a sidewalk sale. Merriam-Webster dictionary, an event in which a store displays its goods outside on a sidewalk. So, my common interpretation.
But like a store like Dunham's, for example, just hypotheticals, couldn't load up a work van and come out and set up a sidewalk sale.
No. In which a store displays its good on the sidewalk. I mean, maybe, but again, it's singular. I mean, one person can, but again, even that would have to get approved by the township board, and would they grant approval for Dunham's to have
Well,
a,
my thoughts are like anybody can have their own business in sporting events or sporting goods, using that example. I mean, you could go out and rent a van or a truck and put a bunch of tables in there, you know.
Rick, if I might, I think we all have the same concern. It's like, you know, the overriding, you know, you don't want the commercial endeavor to interfere with like the parks and recreational portion of what those are used for, right? Like I think I brought up last time, I asked you about like the ballparks, right? Is one gonna supersede the other? Like who decides who has the right to be there? Does the board have absolute discretion? What's their criteria for choosing one business over another? I mean, I think those are all kind of valid concerns or thoughts.
So we need more clear definitions of what.
Well, it might not be, again, that's not maybe our discretion, it's the board's, right? So, but again, we don't know that, and maybe that's not established, or maybe that doesn't matter. They have their own inclusion criteria, and
Well, the other thing is you have to look at it from a realistic standpoint. If somebody's gonna do something in the summertime and the board has to approve it, the board needs a baseball schedule, and they may not be provided with that baseball schedule, you know, if something's going on there. So it's gonna make it tough to commingle those activities. But you would hope that the board had good sense and would say, look, it's baseball season and the park gets used for baseball, whether, you know, so they would say no at that point of the year. I don't know.
yeah, you would hope, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but, you know, that's the tough thing, is because this is all done way in advance. If the board, if that Little League schedule is out or whatever, at the time that the board approves whatever activity might be going on there.
right, and I don't think any of us think that it's all of a sudden gonna turn ballparks into like thrift shops, but
Right.
I guess we just wanna make sure that, you know,
Priority is
that doesn't happen.
open space, yeah.
Right.
Not a commercial
Right.
site. I would agree with that. The priority is definitely open for the public, not as a commercial venture.
Or at least not first rights as a commercial vendor.
Just so I understand how this is, we're trying to see if we want to make the municipal, what did we call this, municipal?
Municipal center.
A part of the commercial, neighborhood commercial, whatever this definition is of the sales and everything.
to allow that use in this zoning district.
So we're just changing it, or if we were to change it to the municipal center, right? Adding it to that?
Yes, adding
Okay.
those uses as.
And the other portion of this is to take out the circuses and whatever?
Yes.
Right, events. and-
Okay. I'm just making sure I understood everything. And the only reason I think that we were brought this to our attention is because there was somebody that came to the board and asked to do an arts and crafts and had an actual layout of the whole arts and crafts over here at the center. We had to let them know that it wasn't allowed and that we were going to entertain that thought, and we had to bring it to the planning commission to find out if we would allow for that, and we'd have to change to allow for that. That's, I think, am I right, wrong? So that's where we're at with it.
So really, the board could have allowed that if they wanted to. They didn't need this ordinance.
But we
allow
have
it.
to have it allowed in the municipal center in order for that person to get the right to be able to have the arts and crafts here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I definitely preach complete conformance with our zoning ordinance. I mean, I think it's very appropriate if the township sets rules and regulations for, you know, person A, they should follow their own standards. So I suggest that, you know, the zoning ordinance, you know, it's allowed, if the township wants to allow it as a use, you know, that we should amend our zoning ordinance to allow it as a use. You know, if the township did want to allow it, I think they legally could, even if it's not.
But we have to have a
Yeah.
solid reason to
Yeah.
tell somebody that they can't have that.
So this is not giving them solid reason that they can't have it, this is giving them solid reason that they possibly could have it. You see what I mean? And I don't know, is that something we want to encourage in our municipal centers?
I personally think that our Cherry Bend is way busier than, I mean, how many phone calls have we gotten just today to renting the pavilion and the whole, we have ball field, soccer, family reunions, in pickleball. We have so many things going on here that I think that allowing for an arts and crafts annually 2 or 3 times during the summer would be very, very difficult to allow for. That's my personal opinion. But
I think you're right. I mean, I think the parks should be the parks, not a commercial venue.
and we'd have to really pinpoint time frame when it could puzzle itself in to be allowed. You know what I mean? We don't know all the tournaments of baseball or soccer or,
It would be different if our parks were underutilized, but from what I hear you saying, that's not the case. They're not underutilized.
I don't think so. I think it's very well used and it's booked.
You hate to have an issue, somebody mishaps on a schedule, and all of a sudden there's 3 Little League games going on and parking lot's full, and then
Mhm.
somebody shows up to set up something like that. What, just to clarify, as far as municipal buildings go, isn't there arts shows that occur at the elementary school?
The old Norris building at the corner?
Yes.
Yes,
But that's not a municipal center, that's,
privately owned or something,
Yeah.
Commercial
something different.
sometimes.
Yeah, neighborhood commercial.
Neighborhood
Yeah,
commercial.
there are only, I believe it's 3 parcels, separated into 3 parcels, and where, I mean, it's the parcel we're on right now with the fire station, Township Hall all the way down, and then it's the tennis courts is a separate parcel, and then there's another one. It's only this compound, if you will, Cherry Bend Park, and the municipal buildings.
And if I remember right, they wanted to do the arts and crafts down at Grayleyville.
And was immediately shot down.
Yes.
At the waterfront,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we said no, and she had the plan all ready to go for right here, and we're like, well, Sarah pointed out that we're not zoned for that, so the township decided to throw it to this court.
But there is still language here that we want to remove certain words, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am sensing that the zoning commission does not have a lot of interest in adding a municipal center to section 5.4. That's the land use adding, excuse me, no, I was looking for
Amending section 3.17.
3.17, I grabbed the wrong, sorry, the wrong document, so. But removing circuses and what was the other?
Circuses and carnivals.
From just would be reasonable. I don't know how many requests you get annually for circuses and carnivals.
I know I've been here for so long, but I've never gotten a request for any of this. The only reason this came to light was, again, we got this one kind of request from left field, if you will, I like my puns.
So it's not just the circuses or carnivals that are at risk here, it's the whole ordinance. Sarah, if I may, how would we state that if we as the planning commission, I think, have a conclusion that we really don't want the commercial activity in the parks at all? The parks are the parks, in my opinion. There's other places for art fair, and one of them being North School. So I don't know if we're not interested in doing this or having this happen, how do we prevent it? How do we stop it?
Can't we just strike municipal center as it's laid out before us, and then everything else is already in place, isn't it?
Right.
Yes. I mean, I don't think it would change the intent of the ordinance I don't know. I'd almost actually want to re-advertise it if we're striking that from it. It's one of those things that it's borderline. It's not just it's not the full intent of, what we're proposing to change. But it's it's the reason why we're moving forward with this language. This language came to light. But I'd be fine with striking municipal center. And if the board wanted to go the route of, a farmer's market, is it accessory or not to a park? I mean, it could be argued that it is. They can go that route.
So before we arrive at a conclusion tonight, we need to send this back for another look.
I would feel most comfortable with it, re-advertising, striking municipal center and re-advertising it, if that's how the commission feels.
Is there someone willing to make a motion to that effect?
I would make that motion with that verbiage.
Okay, we have a motion to send the proposed change ordinance back for further study, specifically looking at striking municipal center from the text and then
Reworking, because there's
reworking
language
of the
regarding special
language that
events.
could be related back to that. Not a very grammatically correct motion, but I think it contains all the pieces we need.
I'll let Chris second it then.
Second.
If we have support, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, Sarah. Item K, discussion on zoning ordinance. And we have, that is your memo dated January 5th.
Whenever we have a relatively lighter agenda, I feel it appropriate to kind of throw a whole bunch of proposed text at you.
Is
We
this-
do not need to move forward with everything or anything. It's up to you.
Is this our busy work?
This is your busy
Yeah,
work.
all right.
Great.
Do you want me to go through them itemizing?
Sure. Well, I guess I better let the chair.
No, I think, yeah, please lead us through it.
Okay.
Can we ask questions along the way?
Oh my
You
gosh,
may.
of course. So I think it is certainly necessary to remove the phrase political from our definition of club. I also think it is purely appropriate to clarify the intent of the ordinance, to clarify the definition of building height, to make it, very standard, so any average person can look at it and be like, this is what a building height is, not having the building height change depend on what type of roof you have. That is quite confusing as your zoning administrator. Also, to correct the lovely calculation that's included in a picture as part of our definition in our zoning ordinance. We don't define hotel, so I suggest adding hotel and then referencing see motel.
Sarah, if I can, yep, the next one, lot coverage.
Oh, yes, so lot coverage, so we do have a definition in our zoning ordinance already, but I do suggest adding impervious surface area, only because we do have a standard under, I think it might be under site plan review and special use permit, it's standard to reduce the amount of impervious surfaces to the greatest extent practical, but we have no standard. What's reducing it? So I think, by including it in lot coverage and then perhaps introducing lot coverage, I think that would, go to, the intent of the ordinance is to reduce impervious surfaces.
The problem that I have with that is, a lot of times, if a structure, or if a building goes in or whatever, it may be proposed one way, and then later on, they'll pave the parking lot. And so, can they do that, and who's gonna monitor that? You know what I mean? So if somebody proposes a business and they put in an impervious parking lot, and then later asphalt it, how do we handle that? Does that mean they can't?
Under our current ordinance?
No, under this.
Under this, so, I guess for discussion purposes, we're also gonna kind of skip ahead to, I'm suggesting introducing maximum lot coverage. So, again, assuming both of those are passed, if, somebody is at 29% lot coverage and they have a gravel parking lot and they wanna pave it, they could not, under our zoning ordinance, without obtaining a variance. But also under our current ordinance, somebody can pave a lot entirely, period. If it's a parking lot, doesn't need to conform to setbacks. Parking lot, sidewalk, there are standards for parking lots, so that's why I'm adding sidewalks and patios. Because it's not a structure, you can go right up to the lot line. So you can pave an entire lot, have it be completely asphalt under our current ordinance. And that's my biggest concern. I have not seen that yet here, but coming from a municipality where like almost every square footage is covered, it can be an issue. You get a lot of runoff, to neighbors. It's not a good situation when, you have, when you personally don't have a lot that is, you have grass, and your neighbor comes in and completely cements their entire property, where's that water gonna go? That water's gonna go to your neighbor. So by having these kind of regulations, it would reduce that in the future. You're pondering what other thoughts you
Well,
have on that?
I was just thinking why somebody would pave their entire property, but then I was also thinking of Steve Christensen, and he would require retention basins and whatever, so you couldn't necessarily do that, especially in a commercial setting, not necessarily in a residential setting. So in a commercial setting, you have to contain your own water on your site. That's the way it's set aside. So this then becomes more, in my mind, more crucial to the residential district. And I'm not sure that's where it was intended, but I was just thinking, what about, because quite often that happens. People will build a house and then just live with gravel driveway, stone driveway for a while, and then all of a sudden it's paved after the fact. Didn't know if it mattered, just something to think about.
I would say generally speaking, so residential properties, minimum lot size is 12,500 square feet. I've gone through aerials, obviously I haven't done like a formal analysis of it by any means, but majority of lots are not covered like that. So, I don't necessarily foresee that being an issue at this time. I just don't want it to be an issue in the future, which is why I'm proposing that change. Again, we don't need to move forward at this time. I mean, I just, you know.
It's just one I want you to give a little more thought to, because, I mean, to me, it would apply in a commercial district, but then Steve Christian wouldn't allow it to happen. You've got to have retention basin or rain gardens or whatever to accommodate that water runoff, so.
Yeah, I think the water capacity, though, that is, the storm events, I mean, they're limited. It's not like you have to contain, water on your site from 100-year storm or anything. I think it's only 10.
No,
I mean,
most of-
it's minimal,
Most of the time,
honestly.
it's a 100-year storm.
Is it?
Yeah, especially for a commercial structure. And now, to meet that, you'll probably notice out on East Bay, they're putting underground structures in to accommodate that water runoff. And it's a huge expense, but they're huge structures that they place below the parking areas to accommodate that water runoff. That way they can put asphalt from curb to curb as long as they can keep their water on their site. That's going in, those structures I think already went in, but it was out there close to Holiday Hill Road. That's where they were putting them in. You might have saw all the piles of pipe there.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no,
No.
it's fine. I mean, a consensus, if we don't want to move forward, with that one at this point in time, I'm happy just, nixing it and continuing on. I mean, it's
No, I
not-
wasn't proposing that, I just
Mhm.
wanted something to think about, so. And, maybe you can check with Steve Christensen on that water
Yeah,
storage
I
on
mean,
commercial sites.
Okay, will do.
Okay?
I do propose some modifications to the definition of motel, to make it, clear, to not make any property non-conforming. But also, I don't want to get into a situation where some people are using, a vague definition against, against the township, which could impact the neighborhood, or the commercial district, honestly. I guess I should note, I don't want the 10 to seem arbitrary. I would note that in our zoning ordinance, we do define bed and breakfast inns, that's 5 sleeping rooms. 10 is like twice that amount. 10, I've also seen that in other municipalities, not necessarily in this area, but surrounding. And then want to make sure it's combined in one facility on a parcel, and that where there's a lobby. Again, like when you think of a motel, what do you think of? Does this definition meet it? Yes or no kind of situation.
So if a B and B is 5 and a motel is 10, what's 6, 7, 8, 9?
It would be, if it continues to fall under the rest of the bed and breakfast inn, it would be a bed and breakfast inn.
There's
It's
other
5 or
qualifying,
more.
yeah.
I just essentially want to avoid the situation where we kind of got in with the Kaiser building. That, I look at it and I do not see, it met our definition of a motel, but I would argue that is not a motel. What is a motel would be the anchor inn. Something that, there are multiple rooms, they're separate, it's.
Ice machine isn't allowed.
Well, and truly, I would agree with you, Sarah, I'd like zoning to be fairly clear. They jumped through that hoop because we had another problem with the ordinance somewhere else, and we should correct that also. I can't remember what it was, but that's why they went that way. We wouldn't allow, what was it? We didn't
Well,
allow.
it was two activities on the same parcel.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You could have either the,
Yes, one or the other, which is funny, because if you read the ordinance, we allow separate structures, and we had that go on all
I
in the
think
town.
short-term rental was the issue, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so that's what, because that was originally an issue, like, in the past, like, when they were first going before the ZBA, this was like 70s and 80s, so that was an issue at one point in time. But pretty much, I denied them an STR license, because they are not a residential building anymore. That use was gone, that was actually eliminated under a case with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they eliminated the residential use, and because that parcel is zoned general commercial, you can't, I mean, single-family residences are not an allowed use in the general commercial zoning district. So they looked at their options and went that route.
So we don't allow short-term rentals, that was the issue. I
We
think.
do allow for short-term rentals in all zoning districts,
Okay.
but they need to be as part of a, residential property. But again, so they, in a general commercial zoning district, like, single-family residences are not an allowed use.
I get you. Huh.
So just circling back to your comment, Jonah, bed and breakfast in a single-family residential structure that has 5 or more sleeping rooms, it says 5 or more, and then goes on. So moving on to the next, I do, propose modifications to section 5.4, routine, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, my words, routine essential services. So if you read section 9.8.B1, it full out says that routine essential services are allowed in all zoning districts without a land use permit. But then you look at section 5.4, and it says routine essential services are allowed only through site plan review in all zoning districts except for the rural resort. So this is to align our table to what it full out states in our zoning ordinance. And then this is, the next suggestion is the maximum % lot coverage. I don't think we're ready to move forward with that at this time. However, I would also note, I do propose modifications. So in the neighborhood commercial, general commercial, and light industrial, it does allow maximum height to be 3 stories, but it doesn't, actually have a height limitation. So somebody could come in if they really wanted to with like 30-foot ceilings and have 3 stories, it would technically meet the ordinance, which I don't think is the intent. So.
We don't have a definition of a story? I thought we had.
There's no limitation on the
Okay.
story. I think it's defined. Yeah, it's not defined by our ordinance, but if you look at the,
I thought we had a maximum height of 35 feet.
we do, but with the exception of those zoning districts I just mentioned,
Really?
where it's 3 stories, and we don't define story.
Huh.
So then we're back to using Merriam-Webster, which is,
Why are they separate?
Different? your guess is as good as mine,
So maybe the easy way is to just put those.
35 feet.
Include those, yeah. I mean, you tell me, but that makes sense to me. If you have a limit of 35 feet. for
What was your,
everyone.
can I ask your rationale to go 40? Not to exceed 40? Were you thinking of something specific, or?
No.
No.
To allow more of a variance from the 35.
Right.
So if, somebody wants to have a rooftop deck, okay,
Yeah.
it can go up a little bit, but it's not, excessive, like 60 feet. Or I'd even say 55 feet, going from, 35 to 55. That's 20-foot difference.
So those we should act on sooner rather than later.
I would, I think so.
Because, yeah, I would agree. If that's a loophole that we need to fill, we should.
Yeah, just
fill
because it says 3 stories. Would the planning commission like to see 35 specifically, or?
So how does the dictionary define story?
Sorry, I had that up. My phone, it shuts off very quickly. So it's the space in a building between 2 adjacent floor levels or between a floor and the roof. Lovely bigness.
So if you look at an antique building with 15-foot ceilings, and you've got first story is 15 feet, second story is 15 feet, third floor is 15 feet. If you have a new building with 9.5-foot ceilings, it's 9.5, 9.5, 9.5. You have a residential with 8, you got 8, 8, 8. So there's really, story is just the, like the layers of a cake, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree that definitely should move forward then. Gotta close that loophole, that's important.
And, height
To keep it
limit
at 35 all the way across, or to go to?
Well, if you want to do 40 in the commercials, that's more up to Chief Tampa. Do you have a problem with 40-foot roof line in a commercial district?
For me, it's where is the highest opening that we can access. So talk like a 12 roof. Some of the definitions in the fire codes, they go to the eave. The measurements go from ground to the eave of the roof.
Okay.
And so to help understand, that's what we really truly stop accessing the roof. We can get a ladder to the top of the roof, that'd be fantastic, but if it's 12,
You're not gonna get up there, especially if it's steel. Unless you got good.
5-foot height is a pretty significant building for us.
That would be the peak.
Yeah.
That would be the peak. And we're looking at changing it to 40. But if that's not acceptable to you for whatever reason, we'd reevaluate it.
The salt, like, I don't know what you call it, a salt box style, where one side of the roof is, you got 3 stories on one side and 2 stories on the other. Side the access.
So 40 would be all right, because like you said, it's not necessary to get to the peak, you just want to get on the roof if you need to. Gotcha.
So 40?
All right. So I suggest adding note H to the footnotes. So that's the section that, immediately follows our lovely table of dimensional requirements to reinstitute density requirements. So the first sentence is actually taken verbatim from our zoning ordinance in section 7.1.2. So this is cluster development requirements. So again, residential base density. The maximum base residential density and number of permitted dwelling units shall be determined by dividing the total gross acreage by the minimum lot size. I suggest reincorporating this because we get into a situation where apartments are an allowed use by right of site plan review. But how do you determine how many units can be allowed? In our current ordinance, there's nothing.
I seem to recall a discussion we had years ago about, when we looked at density, about having it, instead of gross lot size, if you had a wetlands, the buildable area. Because if somebody could get, let's say, 50 units on a lot, and 60% of the lot was a wetland and not buildable, could you still squeeze that structure onto the remaining land and have?
Yeah, like we disallowed wetland essentially, right? We definitely had a discussion.
We did,
Yeah.
and actually in our ordinance, so this was in 2021, we included a definition for net density and net lot area, but we did nothing with those definitions.
We did not what?
We did nothing else with those definitions. So I mean, if you want, we can amend this to read net lot area, so that would remove the lot area excluding unbuildable areas of the lot. Examples for unbuildable areas include existing and proposed ingress and egress easements, wetlands, and bodies of water. But if we amend it there, we'll need to amend plan development, cluster development. But I can also prepare that language, if you want to see that.
That's something I think that we probably should run by our attorney, though. I don't know the legal ramifications. It's almost a property takings, so if somebody owns wetlands, not only can you not use it, but you can't count it for the rest of the property. It might be considered property takings, I'm not sure.
I can run that by council, but I would note that under our zoning ordinance, regardless, so if you have a pre-existing non-conforming lot, you can, build, any allowed uses would still be allowed. It's just, so if, for example, though, if you were to have a duplex, I feel like it would come into more into consideration.
Right. Or a major development
Yeah.
of some sort is
Mhm.
where, yeah.
But I can still, again, confirm that.
Yeah, I think it would be good.
Thank you.
Um, And then the rest, I think, is just kind of clarifying. I mean, past practice, honestly, and just, Kendra had made the suggestion at a previous meeting to combine standards, so I proposed that. So, you know, reducing the number of copies, again, pretty clerical. I also suggest, I'm sorry, I'm on page 4 of 5, amending section 9.5. To amend a clerical error, we have 2 periods in a row, makes no sense. And then also to align the extension. So, special use permit, you're allowed 2 extensions, site plan review, you're allowed 1. However, in order to obtain a special use permit, you need to, you know, also do site plan review. So I feel like the time extension, the extension should align. And to actually have text regarding revocation. And that text has come before the planning commission before. There's just been, it didn't move forward with the county, so it would need to come back again, for you guys, for introduction and then public hearing.
Walk me through section 11.14. Why is that language, and what's it doing for us?
Well, so I guess I should point out that under our current ordinance, we do have a few sections that talk about revocation. So if somebody's not abiding by their permit, you know, what happens, but it doesn't actually reference an existing section. So this text, I mean, had been prepared before. I haven't modified any of it. And so pretty much if somebody is not abiding by their special use permit or site plan review, what happens then? I mean, I would view that as it's a violation of the ordinance and we proceed accordingly. But this would allow us, you know, teeth, like we could, I mean, it's an additional kind of section in the ordinance where if you're violating your permit, your operations, you are in violation of it and can be revoked.
So just with respect to the 15-day timeline, so let's say somebody's not in compliance in 15 days has elapsed, does that mean on the next business day, day 16, that we have a special planning commission meeting?
Well, compliance matters are usually addressed, they begin before the zoning administrator. If the zoning administrator gets to a point where, okay, I've given you 15 days, you haven't corrected it, you have no intent to even think about correcting it, I'm gonna, under, you know, this text, okay, well, I'm gonna schedule a public hearing before the planning commission to talk about revoking it.
Oh.
Would we ever get to that point? I don't know. I don't know what the future is gonna hold, but it, again, gives the planning commission more teeth. If you have no intent on complying with your permit, fine, you're not gonna comply with it, you know, we'll start the process of revoking it.
So basically, you would allow 15 days to elapse, and then the decision would be made that they're in non-compliance, and then there would be a scheduled planning commission meeting to.
Public hearing.
Be a public hearing.
Which would,
to-
yeah.
Okay, right.
So Sarah, how do you want to move forward with these? Do we want to look at them for another month, or do we want to pick the ones that we like out of it and get them going through now?
I suggest the latter. So, if there's pretty straightforward ones, I'd like to get those for an introduction.
You were gonna do more work on section 5, 6, adding the lot coverage. You're gonna hold on that section.
Yes, so if I may, so I guess, I'll move forward with everything on page 1 of 5 with the exception of lot coverage at this time. On page 2 of 5, move forward with, maximum height in the NC, GC, and LI at 40 feet. And not moving forward with lot coverage. To move forward with density, but confirm with council.
You wanted to take out the, on routine essential services, you wanted to take out the SP?
Oh,
On
yeah,
page
move forward with those
205?
proposed changes, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
To move forward with, yeah, with no H, so everything on page 3 of 5, everything on page 4 of 5, and everything on page 5 of 5.
Except for lot coverage.
Oh, did I?
3 of 5.
Oh, yeah, at the very top, yes. I guess it does carry over into page 3 of 5.
I'll make a motion to schedule the introduction for the text amendment as discussed and excluding the parts that Sarah just outlined.
Okay, we have a motion to schedule a text introduction at our next regularly scheduled meeting with the items identified by the planning commission being in the introduction.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Comments and Chair, thank you very much for your hard work tonight and past and future meetings, and I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night. Same space, same time. Thank you. Comments from planning commissioners? Comments from staff?
Thank you all, and see you tomorrow.
We are at the last segment of public comment. We ask people to limit their comments to 2 minutes, and this is basically on essentially anything that deals with planning and zoning in Elmwood Township.
Hi, once again, Jack Kelly, 10-100 East Avenue, Lane. As a former zoning administrator and planner for Calcasieu County, as the former Elmwood Township supervisor for 8 years, I totally agree and applaud Sarah's thoughts that the township needs to abide by its own zoning ordinance. When I served in those capacities, I had my own mantra that said that we need to lead by example, not by exemption. Sometimes governments think that they are exempt and they're not. And that's why the third dock went through the planning commission down at the marina. The Garlic Harbor Park sign went through the ZBA for a variance because it was in MDOT's right of way, and we created the MC zoning district. Went through the planning commission and township board. But not all proposals are good ones, such as tonight's township initiated proposal to allow commercial uses possibly in Cherrybank Community Park. If you want background information, you can take a look at the township video where an entrepreneur basically came up, scoured the whole region trying to find a place that put on these art fairs, and she settled upon Garlicville Harbor Park and Cherrybank Community Park. And that's why she wanted to do this. And so I don't know if your ZO 2017-04-19 has any meat to it anymore, because I think that was the genesis and the reason why it's before you today, was to allow it in the MC. And then the question I would just have of you, and you don't have to answer, of course, is the processing procedure going forward of the amendments, since usually sometimes when it's initiated, it has to be voted upon, sent to the township board for its ultimate decision, which could be different from yours, like it was in short-term rentals, unless the township board was to remove their request. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure I'm in the right building or the right place. But I have a question, and I would like to know what is going on top of Timberlake Mountain? As far as planning, should I be in Bingham County, or is this it?
No, you're in the
You're
right
in the
building.
right township.
Okay,
Wrong night.
Wrong night.
It's
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow night,
okay, that's the one I need to be at, yeah?
yes.
But
And I will be here.
Yep, that's the night where the planning commission will begin its deliberations.
Deliberations.
Yeah, public comment was open and closed at the
Well, it was
last.
really
special
interesting
meeting.
listening to what you guys were talking about. I learned a lot. Certainly would like to talk to you more about it, but I oppose it completely. Uses my private road to get to the top. There's only one way in, one way out. You got one of the biggest wetlands coming from the south of Cedar, or excuse me, the northwest of Cedar, all the way through Victoria Creek to the south of Lake Leelanau. There's no other way out of there. All that drains into massive cedar swamps around the area. It's absolutely gorgeous up there, but it's not a resort. It might be good for some homes, beautiful homes, spaced out. Not the plans I saw. Hope we're on the same page with this. It's not good coming through a neighborhood like that. Appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you. Any other items before the commission? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. I'll support it. We have support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:27.
See you tomorrow, everybody.